Hello, and welcome to the Layer 2 show. Today we're talking with Piotr from Layer 2BEAT. Hello, Piotr.
Yeah, hello.
Hi, long time no speak. It has been quite a lot of developments in the Layer 2 space. I know that you have been monitoring. We've also been quite actively monitoring what's been going on. So I want to start a discussion with something simple. So last year we expected Layer 2 summer. And this year the Bankless is writing again, and let's expect Layer 2 summer this year. So what's going on now? What happened last year, and what should we expect this year?
Yeah, so I think this is a very good question, and I think the answer is a bit more complex than, let's just wait, expect, pull all our money into L2s right now because they're gonna boom. I think that there are several issues here at play. First of all, it seems like the general market is trending down with the recent developments in the stable coins. And I expect, and of course, this is the recent hot news, but the trend has been going down for a few months now, I think. So I don't expect any, okay, now we're going to completely shift and by June, we're going to be booming again. This is not my expectation. And actually, many people that are actually, builders instead of investors are welcoming this change of trend because it's going to be less hectic now, and maybe people can actually focus on developing technologies instead of finding money. And the other thing is that the situation with layer twos hasn't really changed in terms of, are they ready for prime time? Because most of them still have training wheels in the form of upgradability, or maybe some of the parts of the systems are not yet developed fully, or maybe they have some limitations imposed to prevent actually, losing a lot of money because the technology isn't finished. So, and then we also have, let's say, competition in the form of alternative L1s, which to me is understandable in a way, because since L2s are not ready for prime time, then you have to have something at least. But alternative L1s won't work long term because it's just, trying to get existing technology, squeeze it to the last drops available. But let's say that you can do 10x with alternative L1s. It's not enough. So it's not a viable solution long term.
Okay. So the Bankless, I just listened to their recent episode, and they're saying average users will not be able to do any transactions on Ethereum mainnet because they will be competing from block space with other layer twos, right? Which are kind of like cities to country or states, however you call it. So where are we? You say we're not ready. Where are we at the development? What kind of challenges are we facing? Is it incentives? Do we need more layer 2 tokens? Do we need to solve the security issues, or just go with the flow and wait till everything is ready?
No, it's a very good question. Again, I think that the biggest thing, at least the way I look at it, is the EVM. The EVM is the reason why layer 2s are taking so long to develop. Because in a way, we had layer 2s without EVM. We have the Lightning Network, it does work. We have Fuel, which nobody uses, but it's a layer 2 on Ethereum that has payments. You could use it. I mean, it doesn't have the nice UX or whatever. It's fully decentralized, fully permissionless. It's a layer 2. You can do payments there. And nobody uses it because on Ethereum, everybody wants smart contracts. Mm-hmm. So then, okay, let's add smart contracts to our layer 2. But now we have two challenges. Either we need to have a ZK proof that the smart contracts were executed correctly. And it turns out this is not a trivial thing for many reasons. One reason is the EVM is just complex. The other reason, the EVM has some operations that are very hard to express mathematically, because they touch on many things. For example, reverts, right? You can have an entire transaction execute, and at some point there is a check. Like, for example, do you have enough money in the token to actually send? And then if you don't, the entire transaction reverts, which means the entire calculation that happened up to the point has to be discarded. And this turns out to be actually quite hard to do mathematically, right? So because of that, proving an EVM in a zero knowledge way turns to be actually a difficult problem. Now, on the other side, we have optimistic rollups, and they plan to also, in a way, prove the EVM, but in a different way, in that they execute the EVM optimistically, hoping that everything is fine, but then anybody should be able to re-execute and find some discrepancies. And it seems like this is also a complex problem. So one of the solutions to actually construct a system where you're able to pinpoint where the EVM has gone wrong seems to be to not build a fraud-proof system for EVM, but actually for a simpler virtual machine. For example, I think someone's going with MIPS, which has less instructions on the very low opcode level. And then you compile the EVM, the Geth EVM to MIPS, and then you fraud-proof that, which if that seems complex, it's like the top of the iceberg in terms of complexity. So, and then we discard all of that complexity, and we have another problem, which is if you really want to do EVM one-to-one, then you're pricing things incorrectly, because on L1, storage is super expensive and cold data is super cheap. But on L2, storage might also be expensive, but cold data is super expensive because cold data is actually what lands on L1, right? So in a way, you should also be paying a lot more for that. And this, if we price things correctly, would influence the design of smart contracts, because a smart contract that's optimal on L1 and enables nice trading on L1, if deployed on L2, which prices cold data in a harsher way, right, means that it's no longer efficient. So even though you can port it, you might not want to. You might actually still, even though it's EVM and the same solidity code and so on, you might want to optimize it so that it actually takes less data. So all of those things combined can be summarized as EVM is complex, and if you want smart contracts in L2, you just have to wait for the people to actually figure things out.
I see. So we're facing really technical challenges and fixing them as we go. I remember a topic during Layer to Amsterdam was EVM equivalence versus EVM compatibility. Is it something that you've been discussing just now regarding the problems we're facing?
Yeah, in a way, there are also, so because proving the EVM is so hard, the EVM equivalence does not necessarily also include the resource pricing. So by EVM compatibility versus equivalence, at least the way I understand it, compatibility means that you could take a program written in Solidity and compile it to some other thing that works sort of similar, but it's not really EVM. And then with equivalence, you can compile it to EVM, you can run EVM. It's just that the costs can be a bit different. Okay. At least this is the way I understand it.
Right. So we are so early in the development stages of Layer 2s, and from one side, it's very exciting to see the developments, and we need some patience as well to do this all. I know that, as I say, we're changing as we go. And one change that you have done was very interesting to the ecosystem, and I wanted to mention this. Metis, you have given a new name, new title, Optimistic Chain. Can you tell a bit more about this?
Yes. So recently there was an update to the Metis rollup, and what they changed is they stopped posting data on chain, thus actually reducing their own costs, meaning their users could actually submit transactions cheaper. Now, this is the plus, right? You get cheaper transactions, but the drawback is that the data is no longer on chain. So you cannot really reconstruct what's going on. And you have to put even more trust in meters that everything's going correctly. So just like with other things, like with having upgradability or with having fraud proofs in development, is just a trade-off, right? So you can get cheaper things, but then you have lower security.
Right, right. And do you think other layer 2 solutions potentially can get this title or definition?
Yes. So this is why we haven't we actually decided on a new term, because we really didn't want to do something that's specific to meters and just saying, I mean, right now it is, but the what we didn't want to do is just say, okay, because they changed one thing, now they're completely different and nobody knows what's going on. What we wanted to do is have a term that can encompass different solutions, and this entails upcoming Arbitrum AnyTrust chains, which would also make a similar trade-off where the call data wouldn't be published. Sorry, the transaction data wouldn't be published as call data on L1. And also there are probably rollups coming that will post the transaction data on Celestia, which is an other L1, not really similar to Ethereum. It's rather a chain that's focused on data availability specifically. And so the idea is, well, if we have a chain that actually just wants us to post data there, let's post data there, and then have a quasi rollup on Ethereum, because the data is not on one. So this would also be named as optimistic chain on L2BEAT.
Okay, very interesting. And thank you for your work, for analyzing all the technical details. The average user does not know about the details, but all the layer 2s, they have been quite active in the community. Metis has been very good, and Arbitrum just launched Arbitrum Odyssey to explore all the ecosystem. Optimism have incentivized in a token way, in a traditional crypto way. Boba is quite active, so all the layer 2s are slowly heating up, I would say. Let's talk about layer 2 tokens. This is the number one thing that the community is expecting, and this is the number one thing that projects do not want to talk about. Obviously, they're playing, delaying, giving hints, or refusing to talk anything about the tokens. But we can see Hop Protocol, the bridge, they've done a token, and Optimism, and everyone is expecting Arbitrum. Metis already has a token, Boba has a token. So any thoughts about this? Do you think that this can shift the movements of TVL in the layer 2s?
Yeah, definitely. We are expecting the Optimism TVL to go up significantly after the token launch. So we'll see. Of course, L2BEAT actually shows a different color for tokens that are, let's say, native to the different solutions. So if you go on L2BEAT and see the different breakdowns of the TVL, you'll see that some solutions have a big red bar there, which means that they actually have a lot of TVL is just their token. But outside of that, I think that there are like two arguments that really speak to me when it comes to tokens. Argument number one is, why do you even need a token? You're like doing something that doesn't need a token. Why have the token? The token doesn't give you anything of value. You could just use Ether. Why the token, right? So this is argument number one that I hold in my head. And I think it's, and I like the argument because I like simple things. And then the argument number two is, which we actually saw this with, what was it? Uniswap, right? A long time ago. So there was Uniswap, and then came Sushi and said, we're gonna do Uniswap, but with a token, right? And everybody was like, wow, this is the best thing since sliced bread. Sushi got all of the TVL, and Uniswap had to introduce their own token. So, and I think it was either on a Bankas episode or maybe on a different podcast when someone introduced the idea of actually launching tokens defensively. So yes, the protocol doesn't need a token, but if it doesn't have a token, someone's going to launch the protocol with the token and just going to steal all the people. So what you do is you launch a token defensively to make sure that your protocol cannot be so easily forked because you also have the economic power behind it.
Right. Yes, so the answer is more or less clear. Everyone is operating in incentives ways, and we need that. And so everyone is expecting layer 2 tokens, hunting for the layer 2 tokens, but it seems to be that the requirements are more strict, and really only the real users get those tokens. So another question, will this year will be L222 as the hashtag on Twitter is going?
Well, I think it depends what people expect. If the expectation is everybody that's using L2s is going to make a lot of money, I think that we are not going to see that, mainly because of the overall downtrend in the markets. But if the expectation is we're going to see the technology progress, yes, I think that we've been seeing this for the past few months, and I don't expect the development to be slowing.
Okay, I see. Anything to add? Any interesting thoughts from yourself? Any observations that you would like to share?
So I think that there is also a race in a way going on in the zero knowledge space for zero knowledge rollups that are actually, let's say, Turing complete, support smart contracts. And we have two big contenders, which is Starkware with Starknet, right? Which they recently enabled people to deposit money on mainnet. And we have the other container, which is Matter Labs with ZK Sync 2.0. And I'm personally rooting for both because I just want to see a zero knowledge rollup. I actually fully realize its potential, but I'm watching very closely to see the developments. I think this is very interesting and speaks to the nerd in me that really likes the idea of ZK because in a way it's mind-blowing what you can do with it.
So you think ZK is the future?
Well, in a way it has to be, but I see that before we get to the ZK future, there is so much more things that you can do with optimistic rollups, so much more optimizations that you can squeeze, so much more use cases that you can unlock. So I don't think that, even though long-term ZK might as well be the future, that it's over for optimistic rollups. It's far from it.
Okay, very interesting observation. Another thing, wanted to thank you for a great conference in Amsterdam, Layer 2 Amsterdam. It was great technical content. You could see everyone who is in Layer 2 over there. Question, are you planning to do other events? Was it successful in your opinion?
So let's start from the end. I think it was like super successful in my opinion. I must say, I was really overwhelmed by the number of people that wanted to get in. And I know we like rejected several times more people that actually then what actually ended up going to the conference, right? We had, I think, 400 attendees, and a lot more than 1,000 people wanted tickets. So sorry to everyone that didn't make it. It wasn't personal, but overall, I think the conference was an astounding success. I've heard so many good things from people, and one thing that really made me happy was the fact that when people were presenting on stage, everybody stopped networking, went to the conference hall, and actually listened to the talks, which was amazing because this meant that the content that we had was so worthwhile that everybody wanted to experience it.
Totally agree with that. I was there, saw everything live, and the bracelets, people trying to get the bracelets even outside the conference venue, because really everyone wanted to get into layer 2, and it was amazing content that you have put together. So thank you for this, and I'm sure everyone is waiting for the next layer 2 events.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's probably impossible for us now to not do anything in the future. But for now, we are taking the time to rest. And yeah, if or when we do something in the future, definitely we'll try to make it larger so that we have more people able to get in.
Cool. What's next for L2BEAT? Any amazing plans that you want to share?
Well, there are some nice things that we're going to add, but I'm not ready to yet share them publicly.
Okay. All right, Piotr, thank you very much for the discussion. Enjoyed talking to you and having your insights.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Piotr. See you next time.
See ya. Bye.